And we should be live now. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are this morning. We're live on Ham Radio DX channel. I'm Hayden, VK7 Hotel. And today we have a very special Ham Radio Shack tour, another one in what will probably become a series now. Now, before I begin, I'd just like to do a bit of a promo for the Ham Radio DX website, which is hamradiodx.net. Let me just bring that up on my screen. That should be showing now. So this is the Ham Radio DX website. This started out as a bit of a location to document some of my projects that I was working on in amateur radio, such as antennas, propagation studies, things like that. So what I'm doing first is just putting out a call to anyone who might have written an article or who's been in self-isolation, maybe making some antennas or some sort of project that they've been doing. And if they're wanting to write up a short post about it or with a photo, and if you think that it'll be beneficial to the amateur community, then please send it through to admin@hamradiodx.net and we will get it posted up on this website. You can see at the moment, I've just got a couple of my previous videos here, but in some of the archives, I've got a couple of categories with antennas and other things. So we want to build on this a little bit. So if that interests you and you'd like to publish your work, then please let me know. The links to both the website and the email are in the description. So now we've got that out of the way, we'd like to welcome this morning Scott VK4CZ. Scott is located in the sunny state of Queensland here in Australia, in the city of, or near the city of Brisbane rather. He's active on his home station on 160 metres through to 13 centimetres on both SSB, CW and digital modes, and his main activities are focused towards 6 metres and 10 metres DXing. So welcome this morning, Scott.
Morning, Hayden, and happy Easter.
Yeah, and good morning to, that was one thing I forgot to say this morning, was good morning to everybody, and hope you're enjoying your long weekend in self-isolation.
And hopefully not too isolated.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, that last bit that I read, 10 metre DXing, I believe that you've been doing a little bit of DXing this morning.
Yeah, no, it's a normal Sunday morning here in the VK4CZ shack. Started off at probably around 6 a.m. this morning with meteor scatter on 2 metres and 6 metres. And just as you sent that nice little reminder through to me, I was over on the HF station on FT8. We've got a great opening at the moment into the Caribbean and also long path to Africa. So conditions already started to fire up. So as soon as we're over here, I know I'll be spinning around and operating again.
knowing your luck, what will happen is during this live stream, it'll open right up and then it will close again by the end of it.
Yeah, probably close. As I turn around, there's still, it's still Mexico. I can see J68. I can see Cuba. So still some good sort of Central South American stations coming through.
Is that usually a thing for this time of year, opening up on 10 meters across the Pacific like that?
Yeah, probably this time just after equinox is fairly common, but the solar minima, without FT8, I don't think we'd be seeing too much activity. I think I got one station in W6 Californian yesterday on SSB, but otherwise the top end of the band was dead quiet. But the beauty of the new digital modes is providing us contacts right through the solar minima. Yeah,
usually around now it's you sort of might get the odd JA, wouldn't you, due to the equinox and that, but it's good that we've got a little bit more activity out the other way.
Yesterday we had a really good midday opening up into Japan that carried through right through to probably about 4 p.m. 0600 UTC, and about 070800 yesterday was but FT8 there was signals. They're not strong, but definitely workable.
Yeah, oh, that's good. You've got a little bit of audio delay on your signal at the moment, but that's all right. It's come good now. So just a couple of people in the chat this morning. We've got Richard 7ZBX. Good morning. Bob ZL2WN and
morning, Tricky.
Harry from Zactech. I don't know what Harry's call sign is. He's he has I think it's zactech.com is his website with all of the whisper boards. You've probably seen them before. They work quite well.
Yep.
And we've got KF4WLQ, Wes P World. So welcome. So we'll jump right into it. So the first thing that I was going to ask you, Scott, was what sparked your interest in amateur radio?
God, that goes back a while. Probably as a kid of the 70s, the peak of CB. We had a neighbour who had some CB equipment, and I think that probably is where it all started. Probably used to go over and look at that. Was marveled in the fact you could actually talk to people, and at that point it was a peak of a cycle, and he'd sit there in his car and talk all around Australia and all around the world. I think I quickly followed that with getting my own CB, and a couple of years later learnt how bad that actually was, and discovered amateur radio. So by the time a couple of years had quickly passed by, I'd gone from swapping into amateur radio. So probably from my own perspective, that would have been the early 80s, getting the CB, and then by the mid 80s had got my license.
Now, we have some photos, so just tell me when to bring these photos up, because I'm not exactly sure which one's fitting where. But,
I think let's start at the beginning, and we'll work our way through. That's probably the easiest way, because that's probably a good segue from that last one. Is when was I licensed? I think was your next question.
Yeah. So, well, that was the next question. Yeah. What age were you licensed as an amateur? So you started off in CB, then you obviously just discovered amateur radio. So when did you pass your ticket?
I first passed my license in 1986. So I was a 17-year-old. So there's a few of us around who started fairly young. We were definitely, even back then, the odd ones out in the crowd. So if you wanted to bring that first photo up, as embarrassing it is, I was trying to work out the date of it, and that's probably about 12 months after I was first licensed. And
so what are you doing in this photo? We've got that up on the screen now.
Yep. Okay, that's myself on the left. At that stage, I was VK2XGM, and on the right is Ken, VK2YKM, who's now in Grafton.
So what was your first call sign?
First call sign was VK2 X-ray Golf Mike.
X-ray Golf Mike. Yep.
So straight into the full theory at that stage, a limited license. I didn't pass the Morse on the first attempt. So started off on a limited license for the first 6 months. But that photo there is actually the installation of the original Byron Bay repeater at St. Helena overlooking the coast of Byron Bay. So I was trying to work it out. That probably was around 1986, no, 1987, or maybe 1988. So the first photo I could find of myself after getting licensed. So certainly a little bit younger.
So obviously someone's, I guess, showing you that looks like a bird watt meter, maybe just showing you how to measure the power out, or the SWR coming back or something.
That was definitely measuring the power going out at that stage. We'd had that repeater on test for about 4 months at the Summerland Amateur Radio Club club rooms in Richmond Hill, just to the east of Lismore, and that was moving it across. So that was the first firing of it up and testing the power. Everything was still working after we transported it all out there and hooked it up to the antennas that were way up on a Telstra tower. Oh,
cool. Well, that's one way to dive straight in. I didn't start doing repeaters until probably 5 or 6 years after I'd been licensed, and I didn't understand them. So that's a good place to start. Looks like one of the first things that you learn, though, isn't it? You either learn how to use a microphone, or how to measure output power, or SWRs, usually the first two.
Pretty close to it. I think as everyone, you start off on, almost everyone start off on 2 meter FM and immediately get interested in repeaters from that perspective. But my interest in repeaters didn't last very long. I quickly found the joys of weak signal work and moved on from that.
Yeah, cool. We'll go to the next photo, because I think well, that really went small.
That went small.
I thought that was larger than that. Let me go back.
That was, no, unfortunately, I think that's the scan resolution. Hard to see. That's probably about 1989. I definitely moved on a little bit from equipment-wise, from having a 2 meter FM box and an old TS520. That photo coming up down the bottom.
Yeah, 1993.
1993. Yeah.
VK2 JSR, yeah.
2 JSR. So I swapped from VK2 XGM to VK2 JSR about 6 months after I was first licensed. I went back and passed the 5 words. I failed the 10-word CW at that stage, but got 5. So I sort of hung around on with a combined call for a number of years after that, purely being lazy and not going back. But so that was
Plenty of
1993.
Plenty of ICOM gear that a lot of viewers would recognise the model numbers of.
Yeah, no, that was so 1993. I'd left uni. I'd been working for about 4 years, and you can see where all the money.
Oh, we might have lost Scott on his connection. He'll come back. Let me just stop sharing for a sec, and we'll wait for Scott to rejoin us again. So I'll do another quick plug for the Ham Radio DX website down in the description. Again, if you've got any articles that you'd like to submit, then please do so. I'll just send I'll send him a quick message. He's on a 3G connection because we are planning to show his antennas at some point, and that requires going outside to do that, which Wi-Fi coverage doesn't quite get that far. Oh, here he is. We're back.
We're back.
We're
Apologies.
back again. No, I was just describing that you're on a 3G connection, and that's required to go outside to show your antennas. It worked perfectly in testing yesterday.
Yeah. No, I've got to watch the 3G connection. It asks for more data every now and again, depending on what the phone's been used for. So apologies, everyone.
I hope you've got
I'll
plenty
keep the
of
phone
data.
where I can see it. Yeah.
All right.
Lots of data.
So you've, I think we were discussing your ICOM gear. So you've always been an ICOM person?
I have. I did swap to Yaesu for a while, but the shack behind me now is pretty much dedicated back to ICOM. I think everyone goes through. It's a bit like the old Australian analogy, Holden and Ford. You pick a favourite, you sort of stick with it, and yeah, for me, it's been ICOM, and probably largely driven by the fact of the equipment they produce for VHF and above has probably kept me there, whereas the other brands don't have that equipment.
Go on to the next photos. What's this? 1998.
1998. I'd been in VK4 by that stage for about 4 years, and that was the setup in the first house I bought up here. So the lineup of the ICOM was still there, but there's a little FT8 847 in the center there.
Yep.
It snuck its way into the shack. That was one of the first of the 847s to come into Queensland. I went and bought that one. I think it was the second one that came through Dick Smith's in Brisbane.
So what have you've got? Is that is that TNCs there, or is that something else?
No, they were TNCs, predominantly for packet from memory.
So you played a little bit of packet in the early days?
A little bit of packet. Actually, if I open that, I'll open it up on my screen here so I can actually see. Actually, they're DSP sine wave. I just got a message came up on the screen. I dropped out, so the delay's coming through. They're actually DSP sine wave DSP9s, noise reduction filters.
Yes.
That location was a suburban location with some large power lines running past, so it was quite a noisy location. But with those, was able to actually almost null it completely out.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, and we got another photo. I guess this is the. Is this the? Oh, yeah, same shack.
Same shack, just reconfigured, and the explosion of a little bit more VHF, UHF gear in there. I sort of swapped in and out of playing VHF, UHF over the years. That point of time, I'd probably moved on from focusing really much on 6 meter DXing and 10 meter DXing, getting back into some 2 and 70, and that's where that photo started to come in. So a bit more gear coming back into the shack around the VHF, UHF, and the first of the computers.
So is this one of the I think this is one of the first photos that I've got that's got you as VK4CZ. So before we discuss this photo, why did you pick VK4CZ?
Probably, geez, when did we move here? 19 years ago, we moved out to the hilltop location here. I got into HF contesting, VK4 JSR, both on SSB and CW in contest was a challenge. It wasn't impossible, but two-letter call was definitely preference. So went back, did the change, and beginning of 2003, finally migrated from being a combined call to an advanced, and picked up VK4CZ, which was a little bit of a challenge. One of the other big contest stations in Australia is VK2CZ, David, and unfortunately we've got a lot of confusion, particularly when you get your log checks in the big HF contest back. Lost a lot of points as a result, but you learn to really concentrate on making sure people get that number right.
Well, I know, yeah. Well, you could have gained points from him too. That's the other way to look at it.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The log checking just goes incorrect call and deletes it from your log, and you lose your points. So unfortunately, yeah, it became a challenge.
Just to shout out a couple of comments on here. We've got mornings from and hellos from VK4LHD, VK4LES, Alan GI0OTC, Jason ZL2FT, who says that 10 meters open stateside to the North Island of New Zealand using a vertical here up 6 meters, 45 watts out on FT8. And we've also got Leonardo 9A3 LET, greetings from Croatia. Have you ever worked Croatia before on HF or anything?
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Probably worked Leonardo. So this photo, so this is DL/VK4CZ.
Yeah. Yep, that's probably about 2010. I had the chance to go, and I was working in Germany for a couple of weeks, and the second week of that period I was there in Dusseldorf and got to in contact with the Dusseldorf Amateur Radio Club, and they invited me into the shack for a day. So I spent a day, about 4 hours in their contest station, which is the top floor, about 8 or 10 stories up in a school. So had the chance to do that. Really, truly now appreciate what it's like to be in Europe with the QRM, particularly on HF. Just unbelievable, the signals, and we're so lucky in VK in not having that amateur population around, and we can find a clear piece of band. But 40 meters was just an unbelievable experience, and 20 meters was great fun. I was working back into VK, so can't remember, probably a handful of VKs that you could pull out of the noise and work back. So that was a great experience, being able to get the other side of the world and actually experience what that's like.
And we move on. So QSL cards. Now, yeah, when we were discussing the other day, I did ask you if you had any interesting QSL cards. So I guess you put a couple of these in here. Do you want to explain these?
Yeah, no, we were talking the other day, and we were looking at and saying from a 6 meters, and I think that probably jumped back a little bit. 6 meters is that second band I got onto. The first part was 2 meters and getting on the local repeater. I was introduced pretty early, actually, by Ken YKM, who was in that photo at the Byron Bay repeater. So I'm just watching the phone, make sure I don't use the data. And he introduced me to 6 meters, and I've been on 6 meters the whole time I've been licensed. So right from 1986 right through to now, and never had a break from it. Had lots of other breaks on different bands. 6 has been that one. So you asked the other day about what some of the more challenging contacts or interesting contacts on 6 meters, and that's where these ones came from. So that first one, the French one, was the first ever VK2 to France on 6 meters, and back when Europe had only just been given access to 6 meters, and you'll see in the guy's call sign his Fox 1 Bravo Yankee Mike, but on 6 meters they had to insert the C after the F to designate they had the permission to be on 6 meters. So it was Fox Charlie 1 Boston Yankee Mike. So that was 1991. I was actually living in Sydney at the time. The radio station was still up on our the family farm up in northern New South Wales, 800 kilometres away from Sydney. And the whole week beforehand, I'd been getting reports that the band had been opening and there'd been some good conditions. So Friday afternoon, left the office in the centre of the Sydney CBD, drove home, arrived home at about 3 o'clock Saturday morning. My parents didn't see me till Sunday afternoon when I hopped back in the car and drove to Sydney. But on that Saturday night, scored that contact, so it made the trip worthwhile.
So this was this must have been in a very good solar cycle high. Then did you manage to work many others in 91 that you can think off the top of your head?
91, there was a whole raft of them that from right from probably the Eastern Europeans, but up into Finland, OH, quite a few others. But again, I probably didn't work too many. I was living a long way away from the shack at that stage, and getting home probably every month or two just to operate. But I do remember that one specifically, both from the perspective of it was the first VK2 to France, but also the fact I just drove 800 kilometres, jumped into the shack for the weekend, which was still on the farm, and then drove home back to Sydney.
Sounds like it was all happening in 91 because, you know, the DX, and I was also born in 91. So I just missed out.
You just missed out.
In fact, this contact was before I was born. So there you go.
There you go. You'll embarrass myself.
Argentina.
Probably Argentina. This one is actually from when I was back up here in Queensland, and again, from an interesting or challenging contact, and you'll probably see the time, 14:36 UTC. So just after 12:30, 12:36 a.m. in the morning. That's a long path contact over the North Pole. So the next cycle peak, and again, a great contact, and on SSB as well.
I thought you might have had the back of the card.
Stations.
Yep.
No, that one was just the front, single-sided. So yeah, no, a fantastic contact one, and again, one of those ones that you just remember forever. Back in those crazy days of the gear ran 24/7, and there was a station here in Brisbane who, if anything was going to happen, he'd get on and make a noise and wake you up, and you'd wander down to the shack. So he's now a silent key, but if it wasn't for John Bisgrove, he was VK4ZJB at that stage, I think, or VK4KK. If it wasn't for him making a lot of noise, I don't think I'd never have worked it, but got in there and worked LU8 over the long path over the North Pole at just after midnight.
Now, have you been successful in working them on digital in the last couple of years? Because there has been a lot of working them over the poles to South America there over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually subsequently worked him again, and quite a few of the LUs on over that sporadic key path, which actually perfect segue into the next card, which is OA4TT.
Peru.
This one's another one of those unforgettable contacts. This is actually the first VK to South America on that summer path contact. And I'm sitting here in the shack at the moment. I was just in the yard outside here, and I heard this CW coming out of the shack. And I was actually in the vegetable garden doing some weeding or something, and I couldn't believe my ears. It was OA4TT on CW, and I thought, somebody's playing a joke. Ran into the shack, and it wasn't strong. S1, S2 type signals, and after very nervously, incorrectly, so excited, setting my call sign wrong 3 times, I eventually got the call sign right and worked jacks. So that was the first of those long haul summertime me contacts back in 2009, and every year since we've been able to exploit that path. The last couple of years have been sensational with some really good conditions and good openings across there. And JT65 and FT8 have made that so much easier. The CW signals are really weak, but on digital modes, we're making those contacts quite consistently now.
I haven't been active on 6 meters during a solar cycle high. I mean, this was on sporadic E, but during a solar cycle high, I haven't been active on 6. So I'm really looking forward to what I can actually work for the next solar cycle high that comes around. Well, eventually
Yeah,
when it gets there.
I think the next high, we started to see the benefits, particularly of European stations getting access to the band. That last cycle, lots of European openings, some really good signals and some really big stations over there. So they're likewise looking forward to this cycle and the peak coming up.
So the next photo, we're getting into the microwave stuff. So we might just take a few steps back before we discuss that. We've discussed any more memorable or difficult contacts or DX at your work that you wanted to discuss?
I think probably the focus of most of my operation is that the more challenging modes or paths. So, 10 meters, always 6 meters, and probably why I got back into VHF and above is chasing those harder contacts and more challenging contacts. Sitting on 80 meters or 40 meters and just having a chat in a net is definitely not my style of operating. It's hunting out that rarer DX or looking for the contacts that are harder. And I think because of that, it's really hard to focus down on any single contacts. A few of those ones on 6 meters are definitely the ones that are most memorable. But 10 meters at the cycle peak, working long path into America of a nighttime, close to midnight, always a lot of fun. The Americans don't expect you to suddenly pop up and suddenly.
Well, they expect you to be running a whole heap of power.
They just don't expect you to be there. They're not ready for you. They're not looking, and suddenly, particularly the stations up in the northeast, up New York, and that part of the states, is they hear a VK come through on 10 meter SSB at what is their morning and midnight our time. It's just unexpected. So they're always great fun, and you really notice it in the big HF contests. They're definitely not prepared for it, and you can get a really good run and some good points when you're up there.
I remember a contact that I had. Well, it wasn't really a contact, actually. It was around about the time when 10 meters was starting to open up in our sporadic E season. And I had a FM 10 meter rig sitting on 29.620, just the FM repeater channel. And I started to hear this strange ding dong doorbell sound coming through. And I found out that it was actually the New York repeater. Which is apparently very well known on 10 meters, and I was quite surprised. So I went down to SSB and gave a couple of calls out and worked a couple of Americans on SSB that morning. So that was
well done.
That was good fun. So yeah, sometimes it's just the radio sitting there and it just comes through, and you're not sort of looking for it; it just comes up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think I've got that bad habit of a weekend. I only get to operate a couple of hours on Saturday and Sunday mornings, but the radio gear gets turned on at 6 a.m. or 5:30 a.m., but it doesn't get turned off till about 9 or 10 at night. And every now and again, I'll check in just in case something's been around or there's something, so I can chase it.
Well, there's been a couple of times where I've worked you on 2 meters SSB, and it's been a little bit like that. You've been out in the garden or you've been in the kitchen or something, and I've let you know of an opening, and you've run into the shack.
Yeah, no, definitely don't have to worry about warming up or stabilizing. It's everything's sitting there running, ready to go. So it's the benefit of the shack here is right in the center of the house. So if I'm around the yard, it's easy to get to. Unfortunately, if I'm down the paddock or somewhere at the back of the block, it's usually a bit further to get back. But that's.
So what are your other interests? So what are your other interests in the hobby? So we briefly saw there was some photos of microwaves. We'll discuss that in more detail soon. But what else are you interested in?
I think the core of the interest in the hobbies remained. It's weak signal and challenging contacts. It's not about the everyday contact. It's about how can you push yourself? How can you challenge yourself? Professionally, I'm definitely not anything closely related to amateur radio. So the fact I have my license and still participate and enjoy constructing one of those challenges. But when it comes to operating, it's really looking for things that are a little bit different, a little bit more challenging, and probably more recently, and as we'll touch on through the microwaves, is that getting back out and operating portable. It's one of those fun parts and challenges of getting out there and doing it. So I still try and get into occasional HF contests, not doing as much nowadays. This station here was actually built for HF contesting, and it's why it's an operating position only. There's no workshop here. It's down in the shed. Unfortunately, I think too far away to go for a tour down there. But I think it's now set up for as you did in the intro, I can operate from 160 right through to 2.4 gigs from the home station here. So it's about finding those challenging paths and trying to exploit them.
Well, we'll talk about, we were talking more about long distance and memorable contacts. I know that you've had one on the microwave, or you've had a couple actually on the microwave bands, but we've got some photos of those coming up. So we may as well go into the microwave stuff now, and then we can discuss your contacts on the microwave bands. So what have we got a photo here with VK5DK.
Okay, and 5NC, yeah. This one actually, I was trying to work it out. It's roughly about 1997, 98. Cole, VK5DK, and Trevor, VK5NC, were up in VK4 trying to, as the southern guys try to do, come up here when it's cold down south and come up here and play some microwaves and try for some longer haul contacts. And I think this is when I was first exposed to microwaving. Rod, who's in the very background of that photo, VK4VU or VK4KZR as he was then, gave me a call and said the guys were up here. I'd had an interest in microwaves purely, again, because of that challenge for a while. And that was the first time I got to see it in action. Got to see what the guys were doing, the equipment they'd been building, and started that fire in the belly again around VHF and above operating. And about the time I started to convert the shack back from HF and 6 meters to introduce the VHF UHF gear, and ever since then it's slowly progressed. But the interest in microwave has really probably pushed in the last few years from both Adam, VK4GHZ, pushing me from when I got first onto 1.2 gigs to get onto 2.4, and more recently with Kevin 4UH, who lives just across the valley from us here. He's been pushing, and now I'm operating right through to 10 gigs, except for 5.4.
We've got a couple of comments here. Alan GI0OTC says, Hayden, can you pass on to Scott? He had the pleasure to work VK's 4FP, 4JH in 1992, 4SJP in 1998, and 4ABW in 2002. I assume that was on 6 meters, but
yeah,
it might be
all
testing.
6 meter stations.
Yep.
Yeah, no, all 6 meter stations and all from Townsville. So it might sound a little bit surprising for the Europeans, but those guys are about 5 European countries away. They're nearly 1,600 kilometers north of my QTH here in VK4. The same distance almost that I am away from Melbourne in VK3. So it's the guys up there certainly had a lot of propagation during that period of time on 6 meters. I think we used to get 1 in 6 of their openings down here, just purely the latitude difference. Those guys would be working every single night. We'd get 1 or 2 openings a week. And the further you went south, the rarer they got.
We've got another comment. What kind of desk is that in the thumbnail? So I'm assuming that's your operating desk. Is that a custom thing, or is that a bought desk?
Yep. No, they're all custom. They're Scott built desks.
Scott built desk.
A Scott built desk. Depending on which one it was. If I go back, I can remember the one which was the corner of the bedroom down on the farm was actually a display shelf out of a shop that I rescued and converted. The one that was in the first VK4 QTH was an office desk that I'd picked up off a rubbish tip and built a shelf for it. So, again, there. And the one that's in the shack here now is another Scott built desk, purpose built. So it's an L shape, so you can sit in the center and
he said,
pivot and swivel.
The one with the rack mounts. So I assume it's the one that you've got now, because you've got the rack off to the right there. We'll have a tour because you've got photos of that later on. We'll be getting into the operating position and the shack. So stick around, Mitchell, and we'll get to those photos. So the next one that we've got is your portable, or one of your portable operating positions. Yeah,
this is Cameron Lookout down on the border ranges between VK2 and VK4. A fantastic site, very popular through the microwave activity days nowadays. It's a bit of a fight or a tussle to get your name in and bid on that site to operate from. That's probably, at a guess, and I can do it because I don't have the bigger wheels on the four-wheel drive at that stage. So it's about 8 years ago, operating 10 gig 2.4 and 23 centimeters, and great location. It's about 1,800 meters above sea level from memory, and takeoff to the north, as you can see, almost uninterrupted, just perfect for playing microwaves.
And I noticed too that we've got let me see if I can do this here. We've got 1296 yagi there.
Yep, that's a 36 element DL6WU.
And we've got what's the white dish here?
That's 10 gigs. It's a 600 mil prime feed dish, courtesy of Kevin VK4CZ. That was one of the inspirational points of getting on 10 gigs. And he fronted a dish and said, now there's no excuse.
And in the background, you've got the 2.4 Gridpack, yeah?
The 4 Gridpack, yep.
And some of our other viewers might notice your very stylish, cool number plate as well.
Yeah, it's the giveaway. That they appear on a few of our cars.
So moving on to, so that's another operating position. Oh yeah, we get to see the front of the dish there now, and we've got the 2 meter yagi, and do you have to, because you're also active on a few of the other bands. I think we've got more photos. Yeah,
keep flicking. He's still asleep, but that's Campbell VK4YR, my son,
operating on 10 gigs.
On 10 gigs, although he'll hate me for saying it, but the hair's a lot longer nowadays.
That's all right. Make sure we'll definitely we'll give him a shout out. Yeah, VK4YR. He looks like he's enjoying life on 10 gigs there.
Yeah, again, he was licensed at 15, so he beat me by 2 years. I think that was purely his father-son rivalry. He wanted to do something to beat me.
That was the only motivation to get licensed.
Probably pretty close. No, he's definitely involved in the technical side of the hobby, loves designing, loves building, but not operating. So he's been licensed now 4.5 years, and I think he's had about 5 contacts. Of that, that'd be one of them.
Oh, well, that's it's not a bad place to start, is it, on 10 gigs?
No, good. That's actually Peter. He was working Peter VK4EA at, I think the path was about 100 kilometers, and S9 signals both ways from memory. So no, great contact. So
that's that same operating position there.
Same position. This is actually at Gus Boutel Lookout up on the border range north of Toowoomba. It's a pretty regular haunt now for us. It's about 2.5 hours drive from the home QTH to get up there, but it's another sensational location with views back down towards the city of Brisbane, and almost totally uninterrupted paths from the border ranges through to just north of Brisbane. Unfortunately, the Sunshine Coast is precluded by hills, but we can usually find a scatter point to work back up north a bit.
Where are we operating here?
That's Gus Boutel Lookout again. That was the microwave activity day not that long ago. That was the January, February. 23 on 23 and microwave activity day, and
so you've got part of the you've got an offset dish 90
here. 90 centimeter offset dish. That's 3.4 gigs. Unbelievably sharp, that dish on 3.4. You move about 10 degrees and you completely lose a station that's well over S9.
Yeah, myself and Richard 7ZBX, we had a 65 centimeter offset dish, which was very, very similar, and it was the same thing too. Very, very sharp, and you only have to move it just that couple of degrees, and signals disappear. Although if you smack on, signals are really, really strong. Yeah, no, that one proved it. The actual 3.4 gig transverter, I think we'll touch on later when we talk projects, is a converted panel. It's absolutely deaf compared to, in the background, Kevin 4UH and Cole VK4MIL were operating. And the difference in received performance between the Coon that Kevin was running and that converted panel was huge. So a lot of work to be done on to get that performance, that 3.4 gig transverter up to scratch. You only made one mistake with your dish though, Scott. You put your Callsign on backwards. What's the go there?
Yeah. I've got to learn how to flip it in the phone.
So this is what I was thinking about. So well, before we discuss this, so you said earlier that you run 2.4 gigahertz from home.
Yeah.
Now you've had some success on 2.4 gigs from home. Do you want to discuss that briefly before this contact?
Absolutely not.
Well, it wasn't really your fault though.
No. If anyone wants to search YouTube and search the call sign, they'll find a video from Stephen ZL1TPH of him receiving me in ZL on 2.4 gig with a cracking signal. I think it gets up to nearly S9 on the S meter. And,
so what's the distance for that?
That was just over 2,100 kilometers.
On 2.4 gigs, yep.
On 2.4 gig. So yeah, no, it's one of those ones that also goes down in memory, but for the wrong reasons. That when Stephen went to transmit, he had no output power, and he thought he'd blown his the radio up, only to find out later that it was the microphone. Unfortunately, he packed up, went home, and discovered it was the microphone and had a spare one. So we could have completed that QSO, but never did.
But then that leads us into this QSO, which was last year, I think, from memory.
This was November last year. Yeah, one of those other things, and I've got to blame Kevin4UH again for this, is getting back involved in the VHF UHF field days. And we've been avoiding putting too many stations at one location at any period of time. The Brisbane area, there's not enough stations on normally for contesting to have too many stations at one location. You lose a lot of the points or potential out of the contest. And sorry, I'm just double checking the phone again, make sure we don't lose that connection. But finally last year we said let's do a semi-serious contest. I'm going to say semi-serious because the VK3 think we're a bit soft. We've leased a house which is right at the summit of Mount Moblin here in southeast Queensland. It's about 300 kilometres, I think, from Brisbane by road, at about 2,300 metres above sea level. You can see in the background there the TV towers there. Absolutely sensational site. And so yeah, November, the spring VHF field day, we leased the house, established a VHF UHF microwave contest station there for the weekend, from 6 metres right through to I think we had 10 gigs on that one, and went to 24 gigs in the summer field day. But that there is, as you alluded to, was also the first ever VK to ZL 3.4 gig contact Kevin4UH, who's in that photo. I think that was taken just prior or just at the start of that QSO. So again, another 2,100, 2,200 kilometer microwave contact from VK to ZL.
And you didn't work on, because I gather that because you worked at Steve ZL1TPH, so the station that had his lost his microphone in the previous attempt, at least he had something going this time and was able to make contact on 3.4.
Absolutely.
He didn't have 2.4 that day?
He didn't take 2.4 that day, which unfortunately also would have been a 2.4 gig record if he had had it. But Steve's limited on the amount of gear he can take. So he'd liaised with Kevin in the week leading up, agreed on the attempt on 3.4. Hepburn, the charts at the time were looking really favourable. At that stage, the night before, actually, we were sitting having dinner and working ZL on 2 metres and 70 centimetres. So we started to get the indication that the tropo was going to be good the next day. That's the 2 and 70 antennas up on Mount Moblin we run for the contest. And yeah, so next morning got in, gave a call to on 2 metres. Stephen came back and QSY'd to 3.4. And there are videos on YouTube around that QSO, so you can see Steve come from what was first call was quite a loud. That's the takeoff out towards ZL from the veranda. So as you can see, it's a sensational location. But yeah, that contact, I think close to, and Kevin will correct me later, but I think we got close to S7, S8, almost S9 on 3.4 gigs for a few moments, which was just unbelievable.
And that's the when you say rent out the plate, like that's quite a nice location to operate from.
It's actually a location that as a family we'd gone up there a couple of times and stayed, and I'd operated from there probably back in the mid 2000s. My kids were really young at the time, so I always knew the location, always knew the potential of it, and no, it's not bad. It certainly makes VHF Field Day a very comfortable proposition when you've got a nice roof over your head. The positions of the verandas have actually worked out almost perfect for the directions we need to be able to point the beams. That shot there with Kevin and his microwave gear on that back veranda enables him to go from the Sunshine Coast, which is almost due east, right through to southwest. So it gives us the full range.
And that I think that particular operating, it was either this operating day or it may have been the summer field day. I think it was actually the summer field day I did a video on, and it does have Kevin in that photo there. He's doing some rain scatter tests on 10 gigs, I think.
Yep, no, there was a couple of big storms, and that's actually the summer field day from January this year. And we're working back into Brisbane on rain scatter at probably, I think, 20 or 30 degrees off true path. Could have actually been a little bit further.
So then we move on to the next lot of photos. Now I believe this is your VK?
Yeah.
This is going forward driving and out in the bush.
Yeah, probably one of the other interests that it's sparked in the last couple of years is the microwaving got me back into portable operation, and the last couple of years, probably close to 3-4 years, I suppose, been activating national parks and conservation parks under the WWFF program and VKFF, which Paul, VK5 down near Adelaide, is the national coordinator for, and Paul's been a little bit inspirational in driving this around Australia, but a nice way to be able to combine a few of the non-radio interests of being able to get out, go forward driving, find some really great locations, and add a bit of ham radio into it as well. So pretty much all on HF. The squid pole in the back of the car holds a linked dipole, and just take a Yaesu 991A as the radio and operate from that, just portable in national parks or conservation parks. And over the last couple of years, I think I've activated about 15 parks, all in southeast Queensland, and northern New South Wales, probably out to about 500 kilometres from home here.
There's the 991. I noticed the very technical way of keeping the sun off of the equipment here.
Yeah, no, that was October last year. That's at almost out at Mergen, southwest or West Burnett in Queensland here. It's about 400 kilometres from the home QTH. Up at I think it's Boat Mountain Conservation Park or Boat Mountain National Park. It's October, about 32 degrees Celsius, and unfortunately, it's sitting out in the sun operating. The radio was putting my hand on it, you couldn't touch. So yeah, a towel quickly thrown over it to try and keep it a bit cooler.
So if anyone wants to get involved in that, what is there a website, or is there a way that they can get involved in activating national parks? Because we know about SOTA and everything, and I think you do a bit of SOTA as well occasionally. But
yeah, I've done a couple, but the parks has definitely been a lot of fun. It's almost a nice way of contesting without contesting, adding a bit of challenge and both activating and collecting parks. Probably the best way is either on Facebook, searching VKFF, which is, there's two Facebook groups in Australia who concentrate on it, or actually on the web is search for VKFF, and the Australian site you should be able to find fairly easily in Google.
Now we move on to
information.
Sorry, now we move on to some of the equipment that you've got.
Yeah, the projects.
And most of the things that you've built and put together. So what have we got here?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of same in the look here. probably where my OCD kicks in and everything looks very similar, very neat. One of the questions you asked was, what's the current project? I've got one current project on the move at the moment, but it's in progress for about 2 years. So I thought I'd throw a couple of the other ones from the last few years up. This one's the 144 megahertz amplifier I built for getting onto both meteor scatter and eventually EME. It's a single FET amplifier built into a 3RU case. That's probably close to it being completed and just before it was fired up for testing. So that easily is a legal limit amplifier for here in Australia.
And this looks like the front of the 3.4 gig transverter now.
Yeah, the 3.4 gig transverter. And then probably notice one difference compared to yours. I built this into a 2RU case, so the heatsink on the stealth amplifier just doesn't fit. So what I did was swap it to a slightly smaller heatsink, and just on some soak tests into a dummy load, it gets warm but not hot. So the swap of that heatsink hasn't compromised it yet.
Yeah, what I ended up having to do is, instead of into a 2RU, I had to go to the next size up. I think 3RU, or to fit it in, because of the large pink heatsink that's on the top. You did mention before about them boards being a little bit deaf on receive, but they can be modified so that they do hear a little bit better. But yeah, I swapped mine out for an SG Lab transverter now, and that seems to work quite well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the plan here. I've followed, through your help, the instructions on improving the receive performance. It's also now got the 10 megs reference on it. So from that perspective, I think it's working as good as it can be. Probably a little bit more tweaking of the filters in that receive line may get some more receive performance out of it, but for the moment, it's compared to, unfortunately, when you sit it side by side in the field and compare it to a Coon, you're up against the best standard, but it falls well short.
A lot of viewers that would have seen some of my other earlier videos will also notice that I did blatantly copy your design, so I do thank you for that.
No problem. You just got yours on air probably about 6 months before me.
So this is your 2.4 gig transverter.
Yeah, this is the current project, which has unfortunately come to a grinding halt at the moment. And so that's after the frustration of the incomplete contact with New Zealand. I swore to myself that I'm going to upgrade the 2.4 gig transverter so that from at least my end of the path, there will be no challenge in that. The aim is that this will be a 200+ watt 2.4 gig transverter. It is based around the SG Labs 2.4 gig little transverter, and that amplifier module you can see there on the right is a Siemens module, which we've got a couple of those out of the Europe from a Polish station. All the write-ups on them said that they could be modified. They modify them. They're on 2.1 gigs commercially. In Europe, up to 2.3 gigs. They're delivering over 200 watts. But by the time you get them to 2.4 gigs here in Australia, Scott VK4CZ has been helping us. I think the maximum he got out of it was about 60 watts, which doesn't give me any benefit at all. So the rest of the transverter's built, ready, just looking for alternatives now without having to sell a left kidney to get that level of power up on 2.4.
Yeah, it does. It's not easy to get that kind of power on that band.
We've found a single FET design. A couple of the Europeans have had great success with them. So at the moment, just trying to investigate how we can get some of those boards made. So I'll keep you informed of that one. If we can get a solution, as always, if we can get boards made, we'll need to do a minimum order of 10. So we may progress down the path of releasing some boards out there. But that design is a 220 watt design.
I know of at least
device in it.
I know of at least 3 other amateurs in this state alone that would be interested in that. So yeah, that'd be good to find out.
Yeah.
So now we go back to Mitchell's question. This is the desk.
This is the desk. So if Mitchell's question was about the desk, it is definitely a Scott built desk. The framework underneath is actual garden frames from a local hardware supply, built to support a MDF platform, and then the shelf above it is made out of pine. So it's definitely a Scott built desk.
So we've got the IC 9700 and the 7300 sitting here on the right.
Yep.
The other main
the way the operating position is, it's VHF, UHF through the microwave on the right, HF 6 meters. Well, actually, HF is actually on the left. So from the left to the HF station, an Icon 7600. Predominantly sits on digital modes nowadays, and you can see from the screen above it, FT8, and in the background here at the moment, 10 meters is still going off. A lot of Central South American stations I can see, plus Americans coming in. So it's a lot of the time now on FT8 just monitoring the conditions. If we progress around from that, there's a 2 meter FM box in the middle, which just sits and usually turned down. Around to the right, where is the 7300 for 6 meters, and then the new 9700 for 270 23, and above that, but it's pretty hard to see, is an FT817, which drives the 2.4 gig transverter.
And so is there a PC per radio? Is that what this is here, or is this one PC running multiple instances?
One PC, yeah. One PC is running 4 screens. There's a big PC you might be able to see underneath the bench. Campbell 4YR built me a gaming spec PC to run that. So it's got 4 monitors. And then there's a second PC that's, so that main one runs both HF and 6 meters. And then there's another PC, a second one, which is running 2 through to 2.4 for the digital modes on those bands.
And what have we got in the? So what have we got in the rack here as well, starting from the top down?
Yep. Yeah, purely the fact that once you start adding amplifiers per band, the bench space is at an absolute premium. So that's I think it's a 2.2 meter 19-inch rack. It's the meter deep one, nice deep one. It holds all the amplifiers except for the HF amplifier. So from 6 meters through to 23 centimeters. So 6 meter amplifier is at the base. It's black, so you can't see it. The green LCD display is the Trimble Thunderbolt GPS unit, which provides GPS locking to the transverters. The white box above that is the legal limit on 70 centimeters, a repurposed medical imaging transmitter, which is on 70. A box above that, there's a power supply for the 70 centimeter linear, then 23 centimeter linears. I think the box above the 23 centimeter linear, if anyone's following, is the 2.4 gig transverter. The one with the 2 meters on it, that's the 2 meter amplifier. And then the one above that, from memory, is either 10 gigs or 3.4 gigs sitting there. They're not used from the home station. They just sit in there to keep them safe.
Excellent. Oh, so I see a little FT817 sitting on the desk there too.
Yeah.
So
so that's the IF.
The next lot of photos is your home station antennas outside. What we might do is we might go through them in the photos first, and then we might do a bit of a mobile shack tour afterwards.
We'll see how we go with that walk around and don't trip over.
Yeah, because sometimes it's you see where the antennas are, but you don't really get a sense of where they actually are until you have a bit of a look. So you've got 3 main towers, is that right?
There's 3 towers here. Again, originally set up for HF contesting with 20 meters, 10 meters, and the center tower in the house actually used to hold a 5-element 15 meter monobander. But getting back onto VHF and up, the 15 monobander came down about 10 years ago. It's still sitting in the shed. I'm trying to work out where I can put it. We'll get there one day. The 4th tower may come into the equation at some point, but at the moment, so from left to right in the photo, the 10 meter 5-element monobander, it's up at just under 20 meters high. Sitting above that's a diamond dual band vertical antenna.
Yep.
Not that I operate FM much, but we used to use 2 meter FM for liaising for 6 meter and VHF DXing. So there's the local chat channel. So that was put up. The tower in the center, I think where your cursor is, that's a little tilt over tower I built using a section of Hills Tower. That's got the 2 meter, 70 centimeter, 23 and 2.4 gig antennas on there at the moment. So 12-element loop fed array for 2 meters, the 2.4 gig Gridpack, a 29 element on 70 centimeters, and then the top antenna is a 74 element single yagi for 23, which is like a laser.
And the rear tower, you've got the 6
Rear
meter
tower is
yagi
the
at the
big
top.
tower.
Yep.
Yep. It's a 6M2 WLC M squared, the 2 wavelengths, 40-foot boom, 9 element, and sitting underneath it's 5 elements on 20 meters on a, it's about a 38-foot boom.
Yep.
It's up at 20 meters. And we're right up on top of a hill, so it gives a really great takeoff.
We just got one comment from Andy Cowley. Wow. So it is rather impressive. It's one of the larger stations that I've seen, with it being incorporated into your home though, because it's all very neat and you know, it's well thought out.
Yeah, the actual shack is right in the center of the house. It was originally supposed to be the office. When we first moved here 19 years ago, there's another room at the end of the house was supposed to be the shack, but this one's far too comfortable, far too convenient, close to the kitchen for grabbing a coffee, and it's also air conditioned. So in summer here, when it's 36, 38 degrees and 80% humidity, it's awfully comfy in the house.
So we're just scrolling through. So again, there's some shots here. There's that 12 element LFA. 70 centimeters, 2.4, and how many elements was it on 1296?
That's 74. It's about 7.5 meter boom.
That's slightly longer than Richard's 7ZBX's Yagi that he built on a 6.5 meter boom. So he might be looking at this going, oh, and getting some ideas.
Yeah, I know Richard, I think he's there on the side. He commented the other day just how sharp his was. This thing is unbelievably sharp. Probably on 23 SEMS, working Grant, VK2MAX, who's down at Kempsey. That's about a 420 kilometer path. If I move that antenna 5 degrees off him, I lose him.
Yeah, very sharp.
Unbelievably sharp. Which unfortunately means if you're not pointing at somebody, you don't hear them.
So there's that main tower in the center of the house tilted over.
Just give a bit of a perspective of that little tower. It tilts over so that I can work on all the antennas on the driveway. Worked out perfectly. The design of the house. There's a little alcove between the main house and the carport, and you can just see the room at the end of the carport that was supposed to be the shack. It's now just a storeroom.
So that's the 10 meter.
That's
Yagi.
That's 10 meters, and that 10 meter Yagi is a little cushcraft. I used to have a 30-foot boom 5 element up for contesting, and it developed a couple of problems. I quickly bought that. I think it was Bill VK4FW had it, and I bought it as a temporary antenna, and it's been up 10 years.
Now the next one is a video of the. Let's see if this will play, of the antennas in the wind.
Yeah, one of the challenges of being up here on top of a hilltop is we do get some pretty wicked summer storms. Yeah, it's pretty stilted. That's the 20 meter, and actually a branch flew through that. You're not getting the full effect. That was 120 kilometer-hour winds, and the whole tower's moving. The antennas are flexing. It's something you don't want to watch too often. I've had that tower. The mast of the top of that tower now bend twice in storms.
What size tubing have you got on that?
There's actually two sets of tube in there. It's a structural aluminium. It's 50 mil OD, but there's actually it's sleeved with another section on the inside. So it's the effective wall, I think, takes it out to about nearly 10 mil wall thickness, and I've done that's been bent twice.
And there's another shot of that. Another shot of that tower, and we've got. Is this another set of Yagi?
Yeah. No, actually, it's the latest little project from an antenna perspective.
Oh yeah.
I'm fortunate to have a lot of the antennas from the VK9ML DXpedition from 2001, 2002 in my in the shed. That's a 40 meter, what's called a sigma vertical or a lazy H. It's a vertical dipole. The horizontal elements are just loading elements. So that's been up about 3 weeks now, giving it a trial. But it's working sensationally. It's effectively a vertical dipole on 40 meters.
And the last photo is your takeoff, I assume, in the ZL
Yep.
direction?
That's the takeoff for ZL. So been fortunate. You can see there's a tree stump there just over the neighbouring property here. There was a row of gum trees there up until 2 weeks ago, which was starting to block the path to ZL. But the neighbours have kindly taken down that row of trees along the fence line. So we've got both our view back, but my takeoff to ZL for microwave.
Well, that's great. What was, and you briefly mentioned, you said about DXpeditions. You've been involved in a couple of DXpeditions, haven't you?
I've been involved, but not been on them. That last one I mentioned, I wanted to go on. I should have gone on. Was 6 months after we'd moved into this house, and was a couple of months before my daughter was born. So I wasn't in commission.
maybe the next one then.
Maybe the next one, yeah. It'd be nice to get. I've been fortunate to have operated from a couple of other DXECs, but when traveling, but unfortunately not as a DXpedition. We'll get there one day.
All right, so let's do a mobile tour. Let's see if this will work. So I'll just change the view.
Righto. Oh, there's a couple of conversations going on. If I flick the camera, that didn't work. No, it doesn't want to play games here at the moment. Huh?
That's all right. Oh, there we go.
Ah, there we go. I can't see it. So I'll grab the phone and put it in my pocket. Hopefully the data won't run out. But if we walk outside the shack, it's a nice quick trip out. As you can see, that's the 10-meter yagi straight outside the shack, not too far from the house. That's all fed with LDF 550 hardline. Both, sorry, while I open the gate. And if I come out to the front, I'll try and get in the position where that earlier photo was taken. Hopefully that sun's not too bright. The sun's starting to head up. You can see there's a VHF to microwave tower in the foreground at the side of the front of the house. Big tower in the back. Big tower still facing down to VK3 from meteor scatter. And I'll move my thumb and back across to hopefully gets a 10-meter. I can't see that thumbnail. It's about a centimetre square in the bottom of my screen on this tablet. So, yeah, the antennas are all positioned neatly around the house. Unfortunately for the tower out the back, which is the main tower for 6 and HF, there's about a 50-metre run of LDF 550 to get out to a remote co-h switch out there, so I can control that. But 6 metres, the LDF 550, there's a run and another run out there for HF as well.
So do you have, you've also got preamps up on top of those towers as well?
No, I actually don't run masthead preamps.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Except for 23 centimetres, there's one on the back of the house, and let's see how we go. There's another one of those number plates.
Is that supposed to? That's only half as good as 50 megs.
Yeah, I don't know whether you can see up
yes.
on the back of this tower. That's where the 23 centimetre LNA is. What I've found, but is I've got about 150 watts on 23 centimetres, and even with isolation, sorry, I'll head back to the shack. Even with the isolation, 2 relays in there, I keep popping the FET in the LNA.
Mm-hmm.
And if we come back in, hopefully get back in. The walls of the shack are still pretty bare. We renovated the house and had it fully painted about 6 or 8 months ago, and all the certificates awards from contesting still aren't back up. So give you a bit of a view around the shack, but usually that wall will be covered in little certificates and awards, and then the rack just in the corner. It's
all very neat. I think it's a very envious shack that a lot of people would love to operate from.
Yeah, I'll hang on. You don't want to see the computer printer. See if I can flip this over. There you go, back in. Yeah, as I said earlier, I've got a workshop down in the shed. This has been set up really as an operating position, predominantly for HF contesting. So I've kept it that way, even though I'm doing a lot more constructing nowadays. But that's down in the shed where we've got a dedicated workshop now.
Yeah, well, that saves a lot of space, doesn't it? Because you don't have to have. I know that in a workshop too, you get tools everywhere. You get bits and pieces, solder, all sorts of bits of wire. And if it's in an operating position, it's not really fun.
No. So it's part of my neat freak, but also, it is nice to have the two separated. Purely the fact that, particularly like today, running around bare feet, you're not stepping on little pieces of, wire that cut off a resistor or something, and
and it stabs you in the foot. One thing that I think we need to let our viewers in on. When I started this channel, I don't even know how it started, but there was a bit of an in-house joke of me putting Scott's QSL card into every video that I could possibly put it into. Now, I noticed that Scott's decided to do just that in this video today by putting...
It's called payback.
Yeah, by putting Richard and my QSL card into the frame. I noticed that Richard's is a little bit more, just like yours, because it's yellow. It's a lot more. It stands out a lot more. But but yeah, that is a bit of an in-house joke. So if anyone's watching and you go back through some of my other videos, you may notice Scott's QSL card every now and then. It's definitely not going to stop though.
Yeah. No.
Okay, I'll keep that going.
But again, proves the damn good contact. What is it? Just on 2,000 kilometers or close to it?
I need to get out of the way. That was in 2019. 144.1. I think it's about 1,800 kilometers.
1,800 kilometers. So for the guys in the States or in Europe, whilst we're still VK4 to VK7, from there all the way down to there.
Fingers disappeared to there.
Yep.
So that path is very, very popular in the summer months, and especially on 6 meters, it's almost open every second day at least on 6 meters across summer.
At least.
But on 2 meters, occasionally it opens.
Yeah, but I think one of the nice things we've discovered in the last couple of years with these openings, I think we've worked each summer over the last couple of years, is that once we get that opening to you, it moves across and we then get VK3 and VK5. So whilst we dive into the shack quickly, work you guys, you end up staying here for about an hour or 2 hours, purely because you start working across as the E-cloud moves to the west.
And it's a bit unfortunate for us because there's not too many stations out to your west for us to work, unless it extends a little bit further up, maybe to Townsville or something a little bit higher up, a little bit further west. But it is a good indication of what's going on in the band anyway. Oh, well, thanks, Scott, for your shack tour. It's
that's okay.
Very, very detailed and it's a great operating position, and hopefully those that have watched today have got some inspiration and maybe some ideas for their shack as well, or they might work you. Maybe they'll work you on 10 meters FT8.
Yeah, it's a good chance. As I said, I'll spin around. It's still going. Lots of Americans and Caribbeans still coming through on 10. So
what sort of signals have we got?
I'll just move over. You probably won't be able to see it. But probably the best of the signals, there's a couple of Americans at -3, -4. VK9 is +4. So there's a few good signals there at the moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to operating on FT8 on 10. So thanks again, Scott, for the shack tour, and good luck with the DX.
No problem, my pleasure, and happy Easter.
No worries, thanks.